The purpose of this presentation is to give more information on a childhood disorder that is being diagnosed more and more frequently, Oppositional Defiant Disorder, or O.D.D. How do you know a child has O.D.D. and isn't just being a brat? What differentiates O.D.D. from developmentally appropriate temper tantrums? We will talk about the diagnostic criteria and look at the case of a young boy who has been diagnosed with O.D.D. This is Ralphie. Ralphie is an 8-year-old boy who loves Star Wars, building with Legos, and playing outside. He has a few preferred friends at school and is very protective of his younger sister. Ralphie currently lives in Brooklyn with his mother, Vivian, and his 6-year-old sister, Amelia. For the first 7 years of his life, he lived in Pittsburgh with both parents and close to extended family. Last year, Vivian decided to move to New York with her kids after she and Ralphie's father got a divorce. Vivian was looking for a fresh start and did her best to keep things as normal as possible for the kids, but admitted that without the help of her extended family, her parenting style became inconsistent. She also began to work long hours at her new job, which meant leaving the kids with various babysitters. The divorce and move was especially hard on Ralphie, who is very close to his father. Since moving to Brooklyn, Ralphie has only been able to see his father a handful of times, and they do not talk often. After the divorce, Vivian noticed a dramatic change in Ralphie's behavior. He used to throw an occasional temper tantrum, but after moving to New York, his tantrums became more intense and unmanageable. Ralphie began to get upset at the smallest things, like if he was walking through the store with his mom and wasn't allowed to buy a candy. When upset, Ralphie began to be physically aggressive towards his mother and sister, including punching, kicking, and scratching. Vivian also began to get reports from Ralphie's teachers that were cause for concern. In kindergarten and first grade, Ralphie performed well academically, but would sometimes get frustrated if work was too challenging. Since enrolling at his new school in New York, Ralphie's teachers report that he has a bad attitude and refuses to follow school rules. When asked to sit at his seat and complete a writing assignment, for example, Ralphie will tell his teachers that he's not doing it and will take out crayons to color instead. He has been reprimanded for using explicit language, destroying classroom materials, and ripping up assignments. He tells teachers that he doesn't have to listen to them and has run away from the class while on field trips. Vivian began to feel helpless and didn't know how to deal with Ralphie's outbursts. Ralphie's behavior became so disruptive and unsafe that his teachers recommended that he be evaluated by a psychiatrist, where he was diagnosed with O.D.D. So what is it that makes O.D.D. different from developmentally appropriate frustration or challenging behaviors? As stated in the DSM, O.D.D. is characterized by a pattern of angry moods, defiant behavior, or vindictiveness that is observable for a minimum of 6 months. In order to receive a diagnosis, a child must be exhibiting at least 4 symptoms. As observed by his mother and teachers, Ralphie often loses his temper, which can turn into violent outbursts, and he is very easily annoyed. In school, he argues with adults and actively refuses to comply with rules. Some children with O.D.D. might also feel resentful or deliberately annoy or provoke others. Another sign of O.D.D. is vindictiveness or spitefulness, which can appear if the child seems unable to let small things go and insists on seeking revenge on others. It's worth noting that these behaviors can be seen in all children within normal limits. It is the persistence and frequency of the behaviors that make the behavior of a child with O.D.D., like Ralphie, atypical. For children ages 5 and younger, this means that the behaviors should be present on most days. For children ages 6 and older, the behavior must be observed at least once a week. The behavior must also be persistent enough that it has a negative impact on the child's functioning, including social life and at school. Because Ralphie's behavior was often so intense that he had to be removed from his classroom, he began to miss instructional time, and his mother and teachers became concerned about the negative impact his behavior could have on his academic performance. Vivian also expressed concern that other students may begin to have a negative opinion on Ralphie and that he may have trouble forming relationships with others in the future if his behavior did not improve. Other factors that must be considered are the normal range of behavior for the child's developmental level, gender, and culture, as well as whether or not the child meets diagnostic criteria for any other disorders. If a child has a psychotic, mood, or bipolar disorder, for example, the behavior must not only be present during the course of these disorders. The severity of ODD can be determined based on how many different settings the behaviors appear in. The severity can be anywhere from mild, if it is seen in only one setting, to severe if it is seen in 3 or more settings. Ralphie was diagnosed with moderate ODD, as his outbursts were observed in 2 settings, at home and at school. After learning more about what ODD is, Vivian felt more equipped to support her son. The best treatment for ODD is therapy, and the sooner it begins after diagnosis, the better chance it has of making an impact. Ralphie was resistant to therapy at first, as many children with ODD are, but after building rapport with his therapist, he began to make progress in identifying his emotions and becoming aware of how his behavior impacts others. In addition to his private therapy sessions, Ralphie also receives counseling in school to help learn coping skills to deal with frustration in appropriate ways. Treatment for ODD is challenging and takes time for a real impact to be seen in behavior. It requires the patience and understanding of all involved. In addition to child-focused behavior or psychotherapy, family therapy and parenting classes can help a parent of a child with ODD learn how to positively support the child at home. Vivian began attending parent training after Ralphie started therapy as a way to learn how to handle her own frustration with Ralphie's behavior and to get support in being more consistent with her parenting. Today, Ralphie shows greatly improved behavior in school. Though he still becomes frustrated easily, he now knows several coping strategies to help him calm down, such as drawing a picture to show how he feels and using a stress ball given to him by his therapist. Vivian has also noticed improved behavior at home as she has become more confident in knowing how to respond to Ralphie's outbursts and how to set clear expectations for his behavior. Thank you for listening to Ralphie's story. The most important thing to remember is that a child with ODD is not a lost cause. Patience and understanding go a long way in supporting a child with ODD. With therapy and empathy from others, behaviors of a child with ODD can improve greatly, and with it, the child's quality of life.